Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there this morning? Speak on the show. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, every Saturday morning. Broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook this morning, like we always do, every Saturday morning. As I said, I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins, host of the show. And I got some information we got to pass on. It's going to be a lot coming at you, but be prepared. Be prepared. 844-904-2665. 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. That's what we do here on the Speak On the Show every Saturday morning. Good morning, my brother. Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for your continued support. 844-904-2665. Look a little crooked. I don't know what's going on this morning. Let's get this out the way real quick. Can I vote? You know, we start off the show every Saturday morning. Can I vote? This is what we're concentrating on right now. www.nass.org. Get ready to head into another year, 2024. It's an election year. Make sure you know where you can vote. If your information is correct, this is the website. Make sure you go there, www.nass.org/can I vote. National Association of Secretaries of State. I'd like to let y'all know I know what the NASS stands for. National Association of Secretaries of State. You go in there, get all the information you need, go through the little, the information, then you put your state in, and then you go to where it asks you your personal information, put your information in, make sure everything is correct leading up to November of 2024. Don't wait until the day before. Make sure it's good to go, as we always say here on the show. A lot of things going on out there in the world, y'all. There's a lot of things going on out there in the world, and I'm here to give you some of it. Let's break it down. Let me get myself together. I had a little something going on, so let's go ahead and do this real quick. Let's see. Here we go. I'm messing up this morning, y'all. I don't know what's going on. Let me get myself together. Everything ain't clicking right. All right, I think I'm ready now. Okay, so top secret binder. You know, this former president nothing surprises me anymore. Let's just start with that. Nothing surprises me anymore with this former president and what is coming out as being factual, alleged, however you want to put it. Brian Hoodie, good morning, brother. Appreciate your support. However you want to put it, but nothing surprised me. Well, let's go here because we already talked about the classified documents many, many times. But now there's a binder, a top secret binder, a top secret Russia intelligence binder been missing since the end of the Trump presidency. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. And this is the person that's leading the nomination, the leading nominee to be the president for the Republican Party, who's running as a Republican. And it says there's a binder holding top secret intelligence that contributed to a U.S. assessment that Russia tried to help throw the 2016 U.S. election to Donald Trump has been missing since the last days of his presidency. A source similar with the issue said the Russia intelligence was included with other documents in a binder that Trump directed the CIA to send to the White House just before he left office so he could declassify materials related to the FBI probe of Russian interference in the 2016 vote. The Russian materials included highly classified raw intelligence gathered by the U.S. and NATO allies, fueling fears that the methods used to collect the information could be compromised. Let's pause there for a minute before I go any further. So we have a former president that we have been told through investigations in court filings that there's classified documents that he had in his possession that supposedly he was going to declassify that never became declassified, that are still labeled as top secret, that he stored in his bathroom in Mar-a-Lago and all around in these storage areas. But now we have this binder that's come up that has been missing with top secret intelligence about the investigation or what they found during the investigation about Russia's interference in the 2016 election. But we still have people, and me and James Battle talked about this last week. We still have people who have served in this military, in the United States military, who are still hell-bent on supporting this individual in spite of the fact that something we, as active service members who may have been responsible for classified documents, classified material in our possession, could have been court-martialed, kicked out of the service, maybe jail time, as we've seen the young man, the guardsman up in New Hampshire, Texaria, who has been charged, and now they're saying that 15 other people have been disciplined because they kind of knew, but they didn't do anything, and so on and so forth. But we have the former president of the United States that has all these classified documents, which, mind you, these documents are the highest class that you can have in classification. And there's a binder missing that shows that Russia helped or was colluding to help him win the 2016 election. And people are okay with this. People are okay with this. So you have to ask yourself, step back for a minute and ask yourself, who are these people? What are their interests in the fact that they don't care that he has classified documents in his possession that he was supposed to turn over, these indictments, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, he leads the polls as far as becoming the nominee for the Republican Party in the election in 2024. Let that marinate for a minute. You have people who have served time, they can't even vote. Can't vote. But you have a former president, and I think that's the problem, is because the label of former president, they think gives him license to do certain things. I got some good mornings coming in. Let's see what we got here. Dwayne Collins, do your thing, bro. Checking in from the DMV. Good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you for tuning in. Trent Branch, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support. But this is where I think we, not only as citizens of this United States, but us as individual people as a whole, when we step back and look at what's right, what's wrong, and where we having differences, and understand that, yeah, we're going to have some people that are okay with that. But if you look at the numbers of people that are polled that are okay with that, it tells you more about privilege, the mindset of privilege, the mindset of he can do this because he was, or the fact that you can't do it because of who you are, what you look like, and so on and so forth. The disappearance of the binder ignited such deep concerns that the government last year offered to brief the Senate Intelligence Committee, which accepted, the source said. In a federal court document filed in August by John Solomon, a conservative journalist, the binder was described as 10 inches thick. Not one, not two, not three, 10 inches. I mean, if you say 10 inches, people get carried away. 10 inches thick. That's a thick binder when you really think about it. Trump appointed Solomon to be a representative authorized to access records from his presidency in the National Archives. The court document said that Mark Meadows, who served as Trump's last chief of staff, was involved in handling the missing binder and developing with Solomon a strategy to release the materials that Trump planned to declassify. Meadows did not immediately respond to a request for comment made via the Conservative Partnership Institute, where he is a senior partner. Of course, he's not going to comment because he's under fire as well. Solomon's federal court filing said that just before Trump left office, and I want you to really listen to this. Solomon's federal court filing said that just before Trump left office after his defeat by U.S. President Joe Biden, Solomon was told by Meadows that Trump intended to order the declassification of the Crossfire Hurricane materials in the binder. The whole case was called Crossfire Hurricane. 2 days before his term ended, the document said Trump and Meadows told Solomon that the binder had been declassified. On January 19th, Meadows invited Solomon to the White House to review several hundred declassified pages and discuss the material's public release. Copies were provided to Solomon. As he began preparing a story for his website, it continued, he received a call from the White House asking that the copies be returned for additional redactions. Meadows promised Solomon that he would receive the revised binder. This never happened. There has been no trace of the classified version since then. Former president, former chief of staff. And y'all have heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again because I think I say it because I want the point to get across. I've dealt with classified documents in my time when I was in the military. There's a lot of consequences that can be held against you if you don't handle those classified documents in the manner they're supposed to be handled. That means from handling, reading, storing, destroying, all the above. James Battle, good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for the support. But for binders, listen to what I say, a 10-inch thick binder of classified material to come up missing and continue to still be missing, and nobody is concerned. And it deals with Russia, who, if people forget, Russia is still fighting Ukraine at this time, trying to take over Ukraine territory. Yeah, that Russia, that Putin, that Trump friend, all inclusive. But we still got people in this country, land of the free, home of the brave, who will defend this person and will go to the polls and vote for this person to become president of this United States one more again. Okay. And nobody sees the problem with it. Rudy Giuliani. Let me get his name right. Because, man, my hat looking crooked. I don't know what's going on today. Maybe it's my head. I don't know. Anyway, Rudy Giuliani. $150 million defamation lawsuit case has been lost. He lost in a court of law. An 8-person jury delivered a verdict in Rudy Giuliani's defamation damages trial in a federal court in D.C. on Friday. The former New York mayor was accused of making defamatory statements about 2 former Georgia election workers, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, following the 2020 election. The jury, which had been deliberating since yesterday, ordered Giuliani to pay, wait for this now, a whopping $150 million. And this is the breakdown. $16 million to Ruby Freeman for defamation. $16 million to Shay Moss. Now there's some other numbers at the end, but you're just gonna go with $16 million. She almost got $17 million. Let's be real. Miss Shay Moss for defamation. $20 million to Miss Freeman for emotional distress. $20 million for Miss Moss for emotional distress, and $75 million in punitive damages to both plaintiffs. $150 million. Rudy is special. And when Trent Branch says special, let me clear up special. He means special, and I'm gonna put some words in your mouth, Trent. He means special as in the short bus special that we ain't supposed to talk about. That classroom that you never change classes in type of special. Not talking about those kids. We talking about Rudy. Don't at me this morning, okay? We talking about Rudy right now. Yes, Rudy Giuliani, because I know some Rudys and I'm not talking about them either. Rudy Giuliani got some issues. And this is another case. Let's just be real. This is another case of when you put former in front of a title, people tend to give you the benefit of the doubt, depending on what you look like. Complexion for the protection. Let's go here. Giuliani, who accused Freeman and Moss of manipulating ballots during the 2020 election, insisted outside the courthouse that he stands by his statements. They were engaging in changing votes, Giuliani asserted. When I testify, the whole story will be definitively clear that what I said was true. That's what Giuliani said. Now, mind you, Giuliani never took the stand. He another Trump. I'm going to take the stand, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Never took a stand. Never took the stand. So all that bravado, braggadociousness, sticking your chest out, I'm going to tell you what, never took a stand. He knew he wasn't going to take no stand. We knew he wasn't going to take no stand. His lawyers knew he wasn't going to take no stand. Because they knew he did what he did when he did what he did. There's a lot of deeds, but he did it. However, during Tuesday's court proceedings, Judge Howell expressed concern over Giuliani's post-court tirade, stating that his comments could support another defamation claim. So on Tuesday, he walked out the courtroom and started talking about Miss Freeman and Miss Moss in the same manner he talked about them before, which now the judge has said, he said it in the court, now that this part of the trial is over, they have an opportunity, Miss Ross and Miss Freeman have an opportunity to go back and sue again for defamation. And I would, just because. Now, I had a discussion with my wife. She said, they ain't gonna get that money. And we all know they're not gonna get the money. But it's the principle. And this is what we got to start looking at. It's the principle of the fact that he has been found guilty by a jury of what they call his peers You know, we always hear that when it's us, but let's talk about it. A jury of his peers to show that he did what he did when he did what he did, and he was found guilty for doing it. Rudy Giuliani. James Battle, Rudy has been delusional for a long time. He's been very delusional, and he's been getting away with a lot of things for a long period of time. Rudy Giuliani has been given the benefit of the doubt of being this great person, great guy, due to what happened and his response after 9/11. If that's the only thing you can hang your hat on, which don't get me wrong, let's not minimize what happened on 9/11. But if that's all you can hang your hat on is in a time of need or a time of destruction, a time of death at that magnitude, you're still holding on to that 20 something years later. And that's what your main base is. Tells you all we need to know. His lawyer, Sibley, acknowledged Giuliani's unfortunate comments, but claimed limited control over his client's actions outside the courtroom. This is what he said. This is his lawyer now. My client, as you saw last night, likes to talk a lot. Unfortunately, he said, unfortunately, Giuliani, in his opening statements on Monday, admitted wrongdoing, but insisted that the poll workers' harassment wasn't solely his fault. Nobody knew who Ruby Freeman or Shay Moss were, other than their family members and other than the other people working those polls in Atlanta, Georgia, before Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, and all the other minions decide to put them on public display for saying that they did something that they didn't do. But he says, and I quote, the poll workers' harassment wasn't solely his fault. Now, I want you to think about something. Let's pause there for a minute. The harassment, he said he did what he did. But he also said that the harassment of the poll workers was not strictly or solely his fault. Think about why he put that statement out there. This is to lay the groundwork for Trump and January 6th. He was not solely responsible for their actions after he told them to march on the Capitol to save your freedoms of this democracy. That's what I get from it. You draw your own conclusions. I'm just saying. Trent Branch, yes, it's the principle, but those women want their money, and so do those lawyers. Just saying. Oh, yeah, but Giuliani ain't got no money. He ain't got no money that we know of. You know, his wife, who was divorced, they found out he was hiding money. So now he in court trying to work all that out. But it's the principle. Hopefully, and I pray they do, get some semblance of normalcy back in their lives. Because I heard one of them talking, I think it was Miss Moss, talking about where she was in Chick-fil-A. And I want to say I got this right. She was in Chick-fil-A. And somebody asked her about that. Somebody asked her about that. Questioned her about what went on in the polls or whatever. I think it was Chick-fil-A. I know he has no money. Yeah, he ain't got no money. No more. He hiding money. Let's just be real. He hiding money. James Battle. They can go live in that $5 million penthouse he has in New York. I think they're about to take that. I think he had to put that up for collateral because he owes lawyers money too. He owes some lawyers some money too for trying to defend him. Hey, but here's the funny part. As I mentioned before, we have people out here who are okay with what he did. Stephen Miller. Far writers such as Stephen Miller professed themselves outraged that Giuliani, who claimed a ginger mint was a USB drive full of fake votes funneled into Georgia's 2020 presidential election by mother and daughter Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, have been found liable for damages. Madness, Miller wrote on X Friday night. While conservatives believe in objectivity, fairness, impartiality, and the rule of law, the left believes in vengeance and in the punishment and degradation of political enemies. Now, this is Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller was, I can't remember what he was for Donald Trump, but he's a known white supremacist, in that realm. But he said, and I'm going to say this, I want to read this again. While conservatives believe in objectivity, fairness, impartiality, and the rule of law, the left believes in vengeance and in the punishment and degradation of political enemies. Let me put Trent Branch's thing up there. Yeah, laugh out loud. Because for him to say this out of his mouth, that the conservatives, aka Republicans, are about rule of law, fairness, impartiality, objectivity, so on and so forth. Everyone who's been paying attention has heard what Donald Trump said that he's going to do if he's reelected. He's going after anybody and everybody that didn't agree with him or has gone against him in this time in these court cases. Trent Branch, when is Stephen Miller going to be subpoenaed? Exactly. When are most of these people going to be subpoenaed that were involved? Clarence Thomas's wife, Clarence Thomas himself, all those people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan. When are these people going to be subpoenaed to show what hand they played in January 6th? Trent Branch, I know he had a hand in January 6th. We all do. Proud Boys. Let's just be real. The 2020 election was stolen, replied Hugh White memes. This DC civil court verdict is a travesty and a complete miscarriage of justice. Outrageous, wrote journalist turned far-right pundit Laura Logan, and a mockery of the justice system in this country. Vowed conservative talk show host Joe Pags, got your back, Mr. Mayor. He's not mayor no more. He's not a mayor anymore. Former mayor, like many moons ago, 20-something years ago. Among MAGA men to bemoan the ruling was Giuliani himself, who claimed he was going to appeal. The absurdity of the amount is indicative of the absurdity and unfairness of the entire proceeding. It bore no resemblance to a trial in a country with the rule of law. It bore no resemblance to a trial in a country with the rule of law. Since we're on that, I'm going to change up a little bit. I had something else coming up, but let's continue to ride on this rule of law thing, because I got something I need to bring up. And y'all have heard me bring this up a couple times before, but we're going to bring it up again today. I got my papers all here. Let's go here. Let's continue with this. Not the defamation, just what he said. The rule of law. He said the rule of law, right? Let's talk about the wrongfully incarcerated people that were released this week that looked like me. Not in one state, not in two states, but across the board in this United States of America, we had people being released, again, being wrongly convicted and serving many, many years in prison. When you got people like Rudy Giuliani saying it bore no resemblance to a trial in a country with the rule of law because he was found guilty of saying what he said about those women, people threatening those women for something they did not do, all because his client, lost the election. Let's start here. Two Illinois cousins who have spent most of their lives locked up for crimes they never committed walked free Thursday after 42 years behind bars. And you're going to hear it in my voice because it pisses me off. I'm trying to calm down. The latest in a series of exonerations this week involving innocent people wrongfully imprisoned for decades. James Soto, 62, and David Ayala, 60, will now spend the holidays with their families for the first time since 1981, when they were convicted for the deaths of two Chicago teenagers. The cousins each received 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the killings, plus 30 years for attempted murder and 7 years for conspiracy to commit murder to be served concurrently. The pair ultimately served the longest wrongful conviction sentence in state history. It's the state of Illinois. Now Soto plans to spend his new freedom helping others like him. I feel excited, elated, exuberant, but a bit of righteous anger, he said after his release Thursday. It should not have taken 42 years for this to happen. The state eventually agreed to the petitions and asked the judge to vacate the convictions, and the cousins were asked to argue the case before a judge. They were asked to argue their case before a judge. Mind you, This is 42 years later. Then they even go into Mr. Soto celebrated his release with a dinner with loved ones at Rosebud Randolph in Chicago. He had steak and sea bass. He ordered 2 meals because he couldn't decide, the attorney said. They have minimized this man's life behind bars. This is one of them. Of 42 years of serving jail time for something he didn't commit, to highlighting the fact that he went to dinner with his family, and because he couldn't decide, he ordered 2 meals. That's the highlight of him and his cousin or brother, or cousin, being exonerated after 42 years. But then we got Giuliani, because he was found guilty of doing something he did do, mad because he's got to pay $150 million to those 2 women that he minimized down to the point of being crooks over a damn mint because they didn't get their way in an election. Think about that. Think about that. 42 years these 2 men served in jail for something they didn't do. And the highlight of what this story says about them is he went to dinner with his family. He had a steak and sea bass. The cousins have been separated in prison for more than 2 decades, Soto said. He said he hopes they will be able to help each other in this next phase of life. While incarcerated, Mr. Soto was part of the inaugural graduating class of Northwestern Prison Education Program. Mr. Soto earned a bachelor's degree in science, has taken the LSAT, and plans to go to law school. I'm going to go to Northwestern. I have a job waiting for me there, and I intend to apply to law school. That's at the bottom of the article. What he had when he got out to eat was at the top of the article. I want to be able to be that lawyer that can help some people just like me. I know there's people still in the system just like me. Now that's one. Let's go to the next one. After 20 years in prison, a wrongly convicted man is freed. Marvin Hayes has spent most of his life behind bars for a crime he never committed. 20 years. Even the current local prosecutor said what happened to Haynes, who was 16 when he was charged with murder in 2004 and convicted the following year, was a terrible injustice. Now, almost 2 decades later, the 36-year-old is a free man after a Minnesota court vacated his conviction. Excuse me. I just want people to know that I'm innocent. I was innocent from the very beginning, he told CNN. And I'm just happy that people just recognize it and understand my story. And this is what happened. Haynes was accused of fatally shooting 55-year-old Harry Randy Shearer at a Minneapolis flower shop during an attempted robbery in 2004. The case against Haynes relied almost entirely on eyewitness evidence. One witness later said he never got a good look at the suspect, and another recanted his testimony. There was no forensic evidence, such as fingerprints or DNA. The current top prosecutor at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office stated there was no video connecting him to the crime. The murder weapon was never recovered. Almost 20 years ago, a terrible injustice occurred when the state prosecuted Marvin Haynes. We inflicted harm on Mr. Haynes and his family, and also on Harry Shearer, the victim, his family, and the community. We cannot undo the trauma experienced by those impacted by this prosecution. But today, we have taken a step toward righting this wrong. And this is what they said to Mr. Hayes. To Mr. Marvin Hayes. You lost the opportunity to graduate from high school, attend prom, have relationships, attend weddings and funerals, and be with your family during the holidays. For that, I am so deeply sorry. That came from the prosecutor at this time. James Battle. Now, Alex Jones will go right back to doing what he was doing before he lost his defamation suit. Elon Musk just let him back on Twitter for that very reason. Exactly. the injustice system. Let's just call it what it is. Now that's 3 people. The 2 cousins, Mr. Marvin Haynes, and now this other one. Earlier this week, another wrongfully imprisoned inmate was freed in Cook County, Illinois. Brian Bills, who was wrongfully convicted in 1988 murder of a 6-year-old boy, was released after 35 years behind bars. Also this week, California exonerated 2 men who were wrongfully convicted in separate murder cases. Both were teenagers when they were charged. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 black men just this week released from prison, exonerated for crimes they didn't commit. But at the same time, we have Rudy Giuliani, who committed the crime against Ms. Freeman and Ms. Moss, defamed who they were. And he's saying that the justice system is unjust. Oh boy, you can't make this up. You just can't make this up. And while we sit here and I go over these things and I talk about these things, we still have people that are okay with these disparities in the justice system. It's hard, y'all. It's hard. And I'm going to be transparent here. It's hard as a black man, because that's all I've ever been. So that's all I can speak on. It's hard as a black man to sit, and even if I wasn't doing what I'm doing every Saturday morning on this platform, it's hard to sit by and see these things continually happen to people that look like me, and know that those people I just talked about today aren't the first, and they won't be the last. That's where the discouragement comes in. That's where the anger bubbles. Because the difference today and back in the day, when we were wrongfully accused of things, now they find evidence to put you in jail. Back then, they drug you out in the middle of a square, lynched you, cut you up, hung you, defecated on you, pissed on you, whatever they wanted to do to you, they did in a forum, as they say, of your peers, to minimize who they were as human beings. And it's still happening today in a different way. As me and James talked last week, the only difference is they changed the sheets to suits. They have changed the sheets to suits. And they changed the laws and the legislation and all the things that we look at as far as a democracy to be able to do these things per se legally binding, where rather than just drag you out, they put you in the system and drag you through. 42 years, 20 years, 35 years. And most of the people that we talk about with the overthrow of the election, or the classified documents that are missing, or the defamation lawsuits and all these things, will never serve a day in jail. Probably won't even be found guilty in most cases. And if they are found guilty, they'll find a way to file bankruptcy, as Alex Jones did. His battle mentioned Alex Jones filed bankruptcy with all the things he did with the I can't remember what is it, the killings in the school where he said it was fake. There's no consequences for certain folk, but they throw the book at other folk. This is just where we're at. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is the process and how they do it. That's it. And you can get mad if you want, folks out there. If you want to get mad, you can be mad. I'm speaking my truth and what I know to be true. What I know to be true, what I've seen, people that I know have been in the system. That's my truth. That's my truth. Pro-choice versus pro-life. Pro-choice versus pro-life. Two different situations, two different women, two different states, same type pregnancies. Both are pregnant, but you have two different situations on how they're being handled. And I think everybody's heard about this one, Miss Grace Howard. No, it's not Miss Grace Howard. I'm sorry. Kate Cox, 31-year-old woman, lives in Dallas area with her husband and two young kids. About 20 weeks in her third pregnancy, she learned her fetus was trisomy 18, a genetic condition with slim to no chance of survival. She also suffered cramping and other symptoms, severe enough to send her to the emergency room multiple times in a 2-week period. Cox believed she was a good candidate for the narrow exception to the 3 overlapping abortion bans in Texas. That exception says abortion is allowed when the mother's life is threatened or when a pregnancy poses a serious risk of substantial impairment of a major bodily function. Her lawyers and her doctor argued that her future fertility was at risk. Does it count as a major bodily function? Would Cox, her husband, and her doctor be safe from enforcement of the serious penalties if she had the abortion? That's what the Center for Reproductive Rights asked the court when it filed an emergency petition on Cox's behalf, requesting the abortion ban's penalties be suspended for Cox, her husband, and her doctor, so she could have a legal abortion in Texas. This is one of those situations that was never put into consideration when they talk about pro-choice, pro-life, the right to have an abortion, the harm it may cause to the mother, the chance of life after birth for the child. This was not taken into consideration. So now they're in the court. They're in the court of law. They're in the court of law. Appreciate you, OT. Or whether she can legally have an abortion in Texas. And although a district court judge granted the request, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton immediately appealed to the Texas Supreme Court. He also sent a warning letter shared on social media to the 3 hospitals where Cox might have had the procedure, saying they would face penalties despite the lower court's permission. That was last Thursday. On Friday, the Texas Supreme Court put a temporary hold on that ruling pending review. On Monday, Cox made the decision to leave the state to get the procedure. A few hours later, the Texas Supreme Court ruled against her and sided with Paxton. Republicans are not pro-life. They might be anti-abortion, but there's a big difference between the two. Exactly. Let's pause there for a minute. So she had to leave Texas to get the procedure done. And then a few hours later, the Texas Supreme Court ruled against her and sided with Attorney General Paxton. Leaving Texas for an abortion is a legal option, and this is what it reads. Many who read the headlines that Kate Cox was fleeing the state to get an abortion thought that was against the law. Texans can and do legally leave the state to get abortions if they have the financial means. Many thousands of Texans drive hundreds of miles across the huge state or fly to states that allow abortions. Some Texas counties are trying to outlaw traveling through them for abortions, but it is not clear how those laws would be enforced. Cox did not want to travel, as she wrote in an op-ed in the Dallas Morning News last week. I am a Texan. Why should I or any other woman have to drive or fly hundreds of miles to do what we feel is best for ourselves and our families to determine our own futures? Pregnant patients in Texas who can't afford to travel for abortions can either continue to carry the pregnancy or wait until they become sick enough to qualify for the medical exception. So they would rather you wait to damn near die before they make any actions or allow you to take any actions to save your life. Any doctors in Texas who perform abortions face malpractice suits, felony charges, anything that can be held against them. It says here, in the court, legal filings, Paxton's office has repeatedly argued that women with life-threatening pregnancies who did not get appropriate care in Texas can and should sue their doctors for malpractice. At the same time, all of Texas's abortion laws target doctors who perform abortions with penalties. Doctors face life in prison, fines of $100,000, and loss of their medical license. Paxton has not responded to repeated requests from NPR for explanations on how the overlapping abortion bans are being enforced. Now that's in Texas. That's one person that was in Texas. Now let's talk about, and I want to put this out here because I think we need to make sure we know. Miss Cox is Caucasian, white. This next woman I want to talk about in Ohio is a black woman. Black Ohio woman criminally charged after miscarriage underscores the perils of pregnancy post Roe versus Wade. Ohio was in the throes of a bitter debate over abortion rights this fall when Brittany Watts, 21 weeks and 5 days pregnant, began passing thick blood clots. Now, y'all hold on because it's making it a little graphic. The 33-year-old Watts, who had not shared the news of her pregnancy even with her family, made her first prenatal visit to a doctor's office behind Mercy Health St. Joseph Hospital in Warren, a working-class city about 60 miles southeast of Cleveland. The doctor said that while a fetal heartbeat was still present, Watts' water had broken prematurely and the fetus she was carrying would not survive. He advised heading to the hospital to have her labor induced so she could have what amounted to an abortion to deliver the non-viable fetus. Otherwise, she would face significant risk of death, records of her case show. So there's a chance that she could die if she didn't do the induced labor to remove the child that she was carrying because of this condition that it was in. That was a Tuesday in September. What followed was a harrowing 3 days entailing multiple trips to the hospital, Watts miscarrying into and then flushing and plunging a toilet at her home, a police investigation of those actions, and Watts, who is black, being charged with abuse of a corpse. That's a 5th-degree felony, punishable by up to a year in prison and a $2,500 fine. Her case was sent last week to a grand jury. It has touched off a national firestorm over the treatment of pregnant women and especially black women. In the aftermath of the U.S. Supreme Court Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. So this woman, I don't want to get her name right, Miss Watts, just like Miss Cox, we're doing the right thing, going through the prenatal, going to the doctors. The doctors diagnose. The doctors tell them the threats. The doctors tell them what their health implications are. The doctors have told them all this. In Texas, the courts got involved. In Ohio, after all these visits back and forth to the hospital, multiple trips to the hospital for 3 days, she miscarried into a toilet then flushed and plunged the toilet, where the toilet got backed up. So that's when people got involved. But let's look at the fact that if Miss Watts was able to get the care that she was supposed to get without any obstruction from the courts, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because the courts were involved, this young lady, 33 years old, had the baby in the toilet. Now, I'm not going to say that she was right by trying to flush the child and getting this caught in the pipes and all of that and plunging it and everything. No, I'm not going to agree with that. But if she did everything that she was supposed to do, I'm going to go out on a limb and say she was at a point of, what do I do? I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. What am I supposed to do? Because there's nobody that's helping her, as well as Miss Cox. She went through the legal, they did everything. She had to leave the state to go get care for something that was jeopardizing a pregnancy. Let's get this right now. A pregnancy that was jeopardizing the life of both of these women. And we have people that will frown upon this, not knowing the full extent of what was going on. All they hear is abortion. And that's it. They don't know the ins. They don't know the outs. They don't know the particulars. They don't know this health situation. They don't know all these different things. All they know is because they label themselves as pro-life, they never take into account the other parts of what could be going on with the individual who's carrying the child. Now, I'm all about pro-choice, but I'm also pro-life. You can be two things at the same time. Let's just be honest. You can be two things at the same time. But I think these choices need to be put back in the hands of those who are in the situation. You should be able to make this decision for yourself. Two situations that we know of. This is just two that we know of. It's all about control. This is what we know. And the thing is, sad. It's sad. Because anybody that knows or has children knows the joy that they bring to our lives. But we also know the pain of some folks that we know who have had to endure abortions or have lost children because of miscarriage and so on and so forth. But we also have to take into account that there's different circumstances in each situation on why they decided to do what they decided to do. And now we have the court system and the justice system saying, you won't make the decision. We're going to make the decision. We're not worried about how risky it may be for you to die. We're worried about the unborn child. So is that really pro-life? If you're worried about one and not the other, shouldn't you be concerned about both? Just a thought. Just a thought. Just something I wanted to throw out there for you. Pro-life versus pro-choice. Pro-choice, excuse me. Yeah. Racial disparities in lending. Racial disparities in lending. I want everybody to listen up to this. All my former military members, current military members, veterans, whatever you want to call yourself if you ever served, and those family members who may be involved. This hurt me. It hit me. I got to make some decisions going forward on how I feel and how I'm going to act on this, but I want to put it out there for everyone else as well. The largest credit union in the United States has the widest disparity in mortgage approval rates between white and black borrowers of any major lender, a trend that reached new heights last year, a CNN analysis found. It hurts me to say this, y'all. Navy Federal Credit Union, which lends to military service members and veterans, approved more than 75% of the white borrowers who applied for a new conventional home purchase mortgage in 2022, according to the most recent data available from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But less than 50% of Black borrowers who applied for the same type of loan were approved. While many banks also approved white applicants at a higher rates than Black borrowers, the nearly 29 percentage point gap in Navy Federal's approval rates was the widest of any of the 50 lenders that originated the most mortgage loans last year. A 29% gap at Navy Federal Credit Union for mortgages between white borrowers and Black borrowers. 29 percentage points. The disparity remains even among white and Black applicants who had similar incomes and debt to income ratios. Notably, Navy Federal approved a slightly higher percentage of applications from white borrowers making less than $62,000 a year than it did of Black borrowers, making $140,000 or more. So if you're a white borrower, let me get that word right because I keep running, making $60,000, $62,000 a year, you had a better chance of getting a loan than a Black African-American borrower making $140,000 a year. Let's give you a little history on Navy Federal. The Virginia-based Navy Federal, which was originally founded in 1933 to serve Navy employees, is now open to all members of the armed forces, Department of Defense personnel, veterans, and their relatives. It has about 13 million members and more than $165 billion in assets. In total, the credit union rejected about 3,700 Black applicants for home purchase mortgages last year, potentially blocking them from home ownership just as interest rates spiked. And Navy Federal also approved Latino borrowers at significantly lower rates than white borrowers. In a statement, Navy Federal spokesperson Bill Pearson defended the credit union's lending practices. Navy Federal Credit Union is committed to equal and equitable lending practices and strict adherence to all fair lending laws. Employee training, fair lending, statistical testing, third-party evaluations, and compliance reviews are embedded in our lending practices to ensure fairness across the board. Pearson said that CNN's analysis does not accurately reflect our practices because it did not account for major criteria required by any financial institution to approve a mortgage loan. Those factors included credit score, available cash deposits, and relationship history with the lender. But that information is not available in the public mortgage data. Navy Federal declined to release additional data about its loans to CNN that included borrowers' credit scores or other variables in addition. In addition, most of the Navy Federal applications that were denied are listed as being rejected for reasons other than credit history. And then it says that is a quick, stark disparity. It is unusual for us to see instances where the lender denies more loans than it approves. Disparities, racial disparities in lending. This is not the first conversation we've had about this, but this one hits home because I'm a member of Navy Federal Credit Union. Now I have to make some decisions of whether I want to continue to use Navy Federal Credit Union. Or do I wait to see what type of changes they're going to make? That's a decision I got to make, just like if anybody else is out there, a member, they got to make the decision as well. But it really opens your eyes to the fact of when these things are exposed, that the businesses, the people that we ask for things when we're denied and things like that, We're starting to find out that a lot of it has more to do with who you are and what you look like than it does with your financial standing. Call it what it is. Call it what it is. A 29% gap between white borrowers and African American borrowers at Navy Federal Credit Union, which most members are veterans, government employees, so on and so forth, based out of Virginia. This opened my eyes to the point that everything that we use, let's just put it that way, everything that we use, we interact in, where we keep our money, where we do our businesses, all have some type of tainted either history, past, or current practices that disparage against people because of race, nationality, how they feel that day. Anything you can think about where you're discriminated against, put that in the equation, and you'll probably hit the nail on the head. This is 2023. This study was done for 2022. From 2022 back, how much was the disparity at that point? I don't like talking about this stuff, y'all, but it has to be addressed. It has to be talked about. It has to be brought to the forefront. We have to be aware of what's going on, even if we don't want to know, even if we have to make hard decisions. We need to know, and we need to pay attention, and we need to find out what are they doing to fix it. We can talk about all the elections and the voting rights and all these different things, but the everyday things that go on that we interact with, where we shop, what we buy, what brands we buy, where we keep our money, all those different things, where we're asking for loans, we are the most marginalized people when it comes to asking, and I'm going to say asking in this sense, for loans, for a house, for a car, for a business, farmers. I can keep going. But we're marginalized when it comes to this because we have to meet a certain criteria that is not even written compared to those that can walk in that don't look like us, that can just walk in and get a loan just because. When you hear the numbers of a $62,000 a year white individual being able to get a loan before $140,000 a year African American can get a loan, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Sharice Joseph, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate your support. Thanks for tuning in. It's crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying. Laugh to keep from crying. Let's go. Mind, body, and soul, mind, body, and soul. We're coming to the end of year 2023. And I'm going to get into it. The year 2023 is all about being a better you. That's what we were concentrating on this year. That's what we were looking at. And today's mind, body, and soul, I have nothing. I have nothing written down. I have no quote, but I am going to tell you this. We're coming to the end of another year. And I went back and I looked at some of my old shows from 2021, 2022, just a sampling, not the whole thing. And I realized that in those years leading up to this year, it's a cycle. It's the same thing over and over and over again. When we're talking about the voting, we're talking about the election, talking about the propaganda of elections being stolen. We're talking about the injustices in the justice system. We're talking about pro-life and pro-choice. We're talking about disparities as far as minorities, as they like to label, as what we can get and what we can't get, or how we're being discriminated against, and so on and so forth. And I had to ask myself, if this is a continuing cycle that we see year after year after year, and most people will come into the end of 2023, going into 2024, talking about, and I don't like to use the resolutions going into the next year, what they're going to do to make their life better, what they're going to do to become a better them. As I said here, I mean, 2023 was about becoming a better you. But we never take into account, when we talk about being better or becoming better or putting these things into play, we never take into account all the outlying forces that can be preventing you from obtaining your goals, your financial security, your dream home, the car you want. Now, mind you, you go to work each and every day to earn a wage to maintain your livelihood. And we all have aspirations to find and be able to purchase things and to live the best life we can with the financial ability that we may have from our labor. But we never take into account everything that's going on around us and how it trickles down into what we want to achieve, into what we want to gain, into buying that home, into buying that car, into college tuition for our children. All the factors that play into that, we really don't pay attention to until we have to sit down and fill out that application to ask for help. I say that because we have to change our mindset going into 2024. And when I say change our mindset, I don't mean change how we go about our business. I think we need to change how we look at things in a broader scope. And when I say in a broader scope, I mean in the fact of, what are the contributing factors to why I may not be able to get this? Why I may not be able to achieve this? What is blocking me from becoming or be able to have what I truly want in this world? Now, we all base a lot of things, and this is who we are, on our faith. God will provide. God will provide. True believer in that. But we also have to remember that there's other factors that block God's will. As I mentioned to somebody yesterday, I said, you can't ask everybody to pray for you. And I didn't understand it. You can't ask everybody to pray for you because some people pray against you. You don't know what they're putting in the atmosphere, whether it's to help you or to hurt you. It's the same thing when you go and fill out these applications. It's the same thing when you go into that bank that you go and you bank in every day, and how they see you because your money's there. But then when you need money from them, are they actually running your application in the same process as other folks, simply because of how you look? Is it ran a different way? Is it looked at a different way? We don't look at all those factors that can hinder us from reaching prosperity. Think about that. As you set out, you got a couple weeks left to go into 2024, and you're looking at some of the things you want to accomplish in 2024. You also have to take into account those roadblocks, those hindrances, and the intent of other folks because of jealousy, envy, or just normal everyday practices in a business, that because of how you look and who you are, they don't take into account what you may need, or they try to block what you want just because. It's going to be discouraging. It's going to piss you off. And it should. Because as much as we say land of the free, home of the brave, all men are created equal, all the things we talk about, biases, racism, inequality, disparities, all play a factor in this country, in this world. And sometimes we don't put that into the equation of what we're trying to do. Now, I'm not telling anybody not to go for what you want to go for. What I'm telling you is if you reevaluate all the factors that contribute to whether you will or won't be able to achieve something, it will minimize. It won't eliminate, but it will minimize the disappointment that you have when you put in for that loan. It'll minimize some of the impact of what you feel when they tell you you're not approved. Should it be that way? No. Is it the reality? Yes. I don't do these stories or these headlines just because. I do them for awareness. And our awareness needs to be done with the blinders off. Everyone who seems to have your best interest in hand does not. That old saying, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Think of it that way. We do it with our friendships. We do it with our families. We're very critical about how our family deals with us, how our family treats us, how friends treat us, what they say, what they do, and everything. But we never take into account those same things that we're concentrating on with our family, friends, and those close to us. We don't do when it comes to our livelihood, the job you go to, the banks you use, the credit cards you use. All those things come into play because something you may have got approved for with a $62,000 a year income, somebody that looked like you that got a nut that makes the same didn't get approved. And it's not always because of the credit history, and it's not always because of the financial situation. It's just simply because on that day, somebody decided that you didn't look the part of someone that they wanted to approve. It's that simple. That simple. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back again next week, as we always do, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Go to YouTube. You can watch Friday After Next last night, me and OT. We did our Friday After Next last night on the podcast. You can go to YouTube and find that RW Coolins and or OT Radio Show 1. That's where it's posted at. Go back. We did a little laughing on that. Talked about Draymond Green. Draymond Green and some other situations going on. So go back. We had a lot of laughs, but it was some insightful things. Holidays around the corner. Enjoy yourself. Bring family close. Enjoy yourself. And we'll get into the New Year aspect in this next conversation on next week. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself. Love one another. Keep your head up. And most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all next week. I'll holler. Peace.